Hello, I'm Richard with EV4U Custom Conversions. And in this episode, we're going to talk about DC motor controllers. And one of the things that we'll discuss is which controller is recommended for what purposes. And so, an example here is a Curtis controller, which has been around a long time and is very popular. But it doesn't work in all cases, and so we'll talk about what should you use when the Curtis can't do the job. And we'll talk a little bit about what the Curtis can do. So stay with us, and we'll take up a little more of a close-up look at the Curtis and the Evnetics DC motor controllers. We're going to start off by showing you a typical installation of the Curtis 1231C-8601 controller. It's mounted on a heat sink because it's only air cooled. And so you can see the heat sink here. Curtis recommends a 12 by 12 by quarter-inch thick aluminum heatsink. In this application, it's actually a 12 by 24 by quarter-inch, and we have other components mounted on it. In addition to the Curtis controller, you'll need a main contactor, seen here, and a pot box, seen there. And those are the main components that work together to power that, your DC motor. So let's go in the classroom and talk about some of the specifics of the capabilities and limitations of these controllers. So we were talking about the Curtis controller. There's only one Curtis controller that we use, and that is the 1231C-8601. And that's because it has a maximum nominal voltage of 144 volts. They're good to at least 160 volts. And that's why we use that one. Our typical minimum voltage vehicle, except for the AC 50, which we keep at 130 volts because of its limitations. But for the DC systems, our minimum is basically 156 volts. So the Curtis is a great little controller. It's simple. It's pretty much fail-safe unless you really abuse them. They just simple and don't have any issues. But they have some limitations. And so the rating of the 8601 is it's a 500 amp controller, but it's 500 amps for 2 minutes, which, you know, if you're accelerating, 2 minutes of acceleration time, that's you know, that gets you down the road a ways. It's 375 amps for 5 minutes, which would maintain, you know, freeway speed without a problem. And it's 225 amps for an hour. And if you check your motor ratings and so forth, you'll find that this is sufficient to power a vehicle that's under 3,000 pounds on mostly level terrain. Not a problem. It's a good fit. It's inexpensive. They're right around $1,500. You need a few other things to run with that. You'll need a main contactor. a pot box, and a heat sink. And all of these are inexpensive items, nothing too pricey there. And for that situation, that's an excellent choice for a controller. Will work really well. We have them installed in our marketing vehicle, which you just saw the engine compartment of. It's a 1974 VW Beetle. It's running a lead acid pack currently, which has been in there since 2009. The vehicle weighs 2,580 pounds, and it runs in hilly terrain at freeway speeds, and the Curtis will handle that for the most part, even in our well over 100-degree summers. But longer distances, 20 miles of freeway driving up and down in the hills, the Curtis on the hotter days will start to cut back on your power. And so we're pushing the limits. Same way with the Karmann Ghia. It's a lithium pack. It's only 2,200 pounds. But if I make a quick trip into town, a 25-mile round trip, 20 miles of that is freeway driving at 70 miles an hour. And the return trip is uphill, but it's up and down, but we're climbing about 400 feet overall net gain. And so it's getting a workout. And a lot of times, right as I get within a mile of the shop, it'll start kicking back. It has a thermal cutback for self-preservation. And so we are on the edge of that controller. But these vehicles are for demonstration purposes, and we wanted to show what you can do. And none of this is estimated or calculated. It's real world, thousands and thousands of miles of driving. And we put them in lots of customers' vehicles. So we know what the Curtis is capable of. So if you live in an area where you have a lot of grades and you're going to need to pull a grade, or you have a little heavier car, the Curtis isn't going to be the best choice. I would recommend that you go to a controller that has the ability to dissipate heat. That's the weak link, is that it's air-cooled only, and it can only dissipate so much heat. And so my next choice is a liquid-cooled controller. And one of the finest built today is made by Evnetics, and we're going to talk about two of their models right now. The liquid-cooled controller of choice, in my mind, is the Evnetics. And they actually make 3 controllers that I'm aware of, but only 2 that we use in commuter cars. And that would be the Soliton Junior and the Soliton 1. This is a 1,000 amp controller. This is a 600 amp controller. The other advantage to these controllers is they don't have that 160 volt limit. It's a 340 volt. Literature you read, I've read different numbers, 340, 342. They start limiting power of like 310 volts, or current. So the next step up from the Curtis, if you had a grade in your commute, so forth, or if you wanted a higher voltage pack, this would be the choice. Now, few differences. One, we talked, it's liquid cooled. It also has a built-in contactor, pre-charge circuit, and heat sink. And so We actually still mount them on heat sinks and so forth on certain vehicles, just because we use that aluminum plate as a mounting plate, not necessarily a heat sink. But anyway, so those components are built in, so you don't have to purchase those. But, and it's got air cooling, and it will exceed the parameters of the Curtis with the air cooling alone. But to see the 600 amps continuous, you're going to need liquid cooling. And the liquid cooling then adds to the cost. So the cost of the Soliton Junior is about $2,100. So it's not that much more than the Curtis, and you only have to have the throttle input. They have a Hall effect throttle. That's additional. It's more than the PV6 pot box, which is, I don't know, it's like $65. Their throttle is like $165. So you have more cost there, but what really jumps the cost up is the liquid cooling, because you're going to need a reservoir, a pump, a radiator, some way to dissipate that heat. And so, 100 here, 100 there, it adds up pretty quick. And so that's what really adds to the cost, is the ability to have that liquid cooling. But you also get a few other benefits with this. They are the only controllers that I'm aware of that offer the ability to run an automatic transmission, because they have an idling circuit capability built in, so that you can program an idle speed. You may not want to run an automatic, but you may want to run the original rotary style AC compressor. And so having that idle ability allows that to work well. Otherwise, when you stop, your AC compressor stops, and that really takes some of the efficiency out of your air conditioning. We typically use an electric air conditioning unit, the Master Flux, which was featured in a previous video. But you have that capability, that idle capability. It has a brake override built in, where when you put on the brake, it overrides the throttle. Kind of a safety feature. And it has 3 programmable inputs and 3 programmable outputs. And the Soliton one has all these same features. The big difference is that it's 1,000 amps. And it's around $3,000 plus your throttle and liquid cooling. So when you require more power and continuous power out of your controller and out of your conversion, the Evnetics controllers are the way to go. If you have a heavier car and you're going to need more power, especially if you have to haul that heavier vehicle up a grade, this baby's the way to go. So you have to be realistic about what your needs are. How heavy is your vehicle? What's the terrain like that you will be operating that vehicle in? And so this is a perfect choice for any vehicle. Whether or not you have hills or not, but it allows you the flexibility to be in terrain that requires you to pull a grade. The Curtis only works well in that low power requirement area where you have mostly flat land, and you're not going to be asking it to put out a lot of power over any period of time. In the Central California area, they work really well. Here in Northern California, they're okay. In the Bay Area of California, they're marginal because there's quite a bit of ups and downs there. And so the AC system actually seems to be the most popular there because of the ups and downs. Having that ability to use the throttle to maintain your speed with the regenerative braking, that seems to be very popular. But on the DC side of things, Evnetics makes an excellent controller. Curtis makes an excellent controller, but it has limitations. And so this is just a quick overview of those. You can see that the Curtis is going to be about half the price of the Soliton one, and actually substantially less than that when you figure the cooling requirements for the Soliton one to put out that 1,000 amps continuous. So that's our overview for this week on the DC controllers. Let me let you take a look at the Soliton Junior real quick, and we'll move on to something else. All right, here's a top view of the Evnetics Soliton Junior, and this thing is one big chunk of aluminum. I mean, this thing has got some mass to it, so it's going to probably have pretty good heat dissipating capabilities. Has a couple of fans on top here, and you have your terminals for your motor on one side, the terminals for your battery input on the other side. And then on the side of the controller here, we have all of your auxiliary inputs. Here's a computer connection. We have a couple indicator lights, and then you have your ignition, ground. This one goes to an arrow light. You can connect it to the check engine light or whatever. Your other three programmable outputs. Your low voltage signal in, throttle, brake, tach, so forth. And these are your liquid cooling lines in and out, and very nicely designed component, and we highly recommend them. So if you were to have any questions about the application of the Soliton or the Curtis, feel free to email us at info@evforyounow.com, and we'd be glad to answer any questions. We can also provide you with any technical specs you would want on these, as well as they're available online. You can get the manual for this online. You can get the manual for the Curtis online, and it will show you the wiring schematics and all the information you ever wanted to know. Also this week, I'd like to remind you about our workshops that we provide. Again, this year we're going to have 4 of the 3-day hands-on conversion workshops. Visit the website to check out the dates and to register for those. But they're a 3-day event, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. I believe they're being offered in May, June, July, and August this year. And with those, we have classroom instruction and shop time. And we go over all of the components involved in a conversion, how they relate to one another, all the information that you would need to make wise decisions on how to convert an electric or a gasoline car to electric and do it right the first time to save you money, time, and heartache. It's all the information that we have gleaned over the years of doing this successfully time and time again. How to build a simple, safe, and reliable electric vehicle. So this is the ultimate way to go. You will have the knowledge and confidence to be able to do it yourself and get it right the first time. For those that don't have the ability to make a 3-day time commitment, and I realize based on our location and wherever perhaps you will be, it's more than a 3-day commitment. So we also offer a 1-day educational workshop. The difference between the two is that this one you don't have any of the hands-on opportunity. I mean, you may get to have hands-on, like get to see and touch a controller and motor and DC to DC converter and look at them, but you won't be installing it in a vehicle or working with it on the workbench. And so these are strictly an educational day. They're a 1-day, 8 hours, intense. We cram 3 days of educational into 1 day. And so you can see that you're not going to get the level of information. You're not going to have the question and answer times that you get with a 3-day. And then we're thinking about starting another workshop, and that would be another 1-day, possibly even 2-day workshop that is geared around the $7,500 conversion that we featured. This is the cost to do it yourself, to be able to do it right, but on the strictest of budgets. We tell you where you can get the components at these costs, what components to use, how to put it all together, and we're not going into any other detail. It's going to be totally focused on how to do this, that conversion for $7,500. So it'll be an intense 1 day. Like I said, we may, once we get further into engineering this workshop, decide it has to be a 2-day. But at this point, we're going to try to make it a 1-day workshop. And so what we're doing right now is we're asking for input. What's the interest level on conducting additional workshop? The 3-day one has been extremely popular, and I recommend you sign up because we limit the sizes of the class so that everybody has a one-on-one experience, and it's not compromised because we have as many people as we can cram into the shop. It's designed to be a quality experience. So let us know what you think, what the interest level is on this. This, of course, is a lead-acid conversion. I mean, the batteries, will cost you almost this if you go with a lithium. But there's a lot of people out there that have a 5-mile commute to work, and they're only interested in a vehicle with limited range. This would be 120 volt DC setup with lead-acid batteries. That's 10, 12 volt batteries. The batteries that are featured in the vehicles that have been done, there have been 3 of these done. The cars that were used, Ford Festiva and the Chevy Sprint, they can get up to freeway speeds. They're okay for basically the highway or something. I don't feel comfortable driving on the interstate for very far. They just don't have the acceleration power, but they do surprisingly well. And so there are those that this is exactly what they're looking for. But we want to see if there's interest in the workshop. So let us know. Again, email us at info@evforYouNow.com and let us know, hey, yeah, I'm interested. The other thing, because we have a lot going on, we're trying to do away with more weekend workshops. These are, like I said, Saturday, Sunday, and Mondays. I think these are held on Mondays. I don't remember. I have to check the website on that. And we were thinking about holding these on a Monday also, and probably have one a month. So let us know what your interest is, what you think about the day of the week, and also what months. We learned last year that there's a certain season that people seem to like because we had a much greater interest on certain months versus other months. So let us know. We appreciate the feedback, and as always, send your questions to info@EV4YouNow, and we'd be glad to answer your questions either via email, or we'll do it on a video. So thanks again for watching. We appreciate it.